It is I, Renfell. Welcome back to the latest episode in our tabletop world building incarnate tutorial series. That's a mouthful, but don't worry, we'll keep it short and simple as we dive into today's video. And today we're going to be talking about layers. I've got a map here from the city of Forkland, which is part of our Season 1 campaign storyline for the world of the Weave and the Void. You can get a copy of our source book and the prequel module, which is levels 1 to 4 leading up to this actual adventure that we're making maps for right now. You can find that over on our Patreon page at the Game Master subscription tier, or you can go to weaveandvoid.com and pick up a copy there. We're using all of the maps that you see here are available on our Patreon page as well for subscribers, so you get access to all these maps over there. So we're going to be diving into this map today, which has already been created so that I can show you layers and more importantly, how to work with layers on your map. Now, if you haven't ever done layers before, it's a very simple way to think about them. Everything that you see on the map here, from the buildings to the ships to the clouds themselves, if I could get clouds selected there, all of these individual assets, these stamps, these items are placed on the map at a specific layer. If you've ever worked with Photoshop, then you're going to be familiar with what a layer is, or any other drawing program. But if you haven't, here's the simplest way to think about it. There are essentially 10 layers, 5 that go below 0 and 5 that go above 0. And the highest layer is the layer that is on top of everything else, and the layer that is the lowest, which is -5, is underneath everything else. So it's a hierarchy, a tower of sorts, with -5 being the basement and +5 being the penthouse at the top of that skyscraper. So anytime you place an asset right here, you're going to see this icon up at the top that shows layer. And there's going to be a number associated with that layer. In this case, it says number 4. And that's for that cloud because I have clouds located on layer 4. You can adjust those layers using this button. Now, before I do that, I want to pick a more easily visible item for you to look at, which let's just choose this here. This is the legend around the Forkland symbol. And if we go up in here like so, you'll notice that it is overlapping some ships. And if you look up at the top, it says that it's currently on layer 5. So if I drop that down to layer 4, it's still on top of everything. Go to layer 3, still on top of everything. Layer 2. Now suddenly you'll notice there that ship on the bottom left is on a different layer. So it's actually above that. Now, if we do it down one more to layer 1, now the other 2 ships have become available on top of that. If I go down another layer, I think that's as far as we can go down at the moment because I don't think there's anything over here that's below that. So it looks like the ships are on 2. That's on 3. So we'll take it all the way back up to 5. So that just kind of shows you that those ships are on a different layer. And if I drop that down below the ships, below them on the layer chart, they will show up above that. So hopefully that explains a little bit how this works because it really is a vertical setting. But how do you use layers? What's the most important way to use layers? So layers are a great way to add some additional detail to a map. Now, I will say that it's not super necessary for a big map like this where it's not meant to be necessarily zoomed into, although someone could zoom into this map. So there are already sections on this map because I put about 15 hours into this map to get this map ready for the live stream campaigns that we did about 6 months ago. Now, before I put this map into the module, I will go through and do polish passes, and we're going to be doing those as we get into each section of the map and break the sections down, which we'll be talking about in the next video. How do you take a big map like this and break it down into quadrants and then, copy and paste those quadrants out, do a zoom in essentially, and then flesh that area out. So we'll be working on that in the next segments. But in the meantime, there are a lot of areas on this map that have not yet been polished, which I thought would be a perfect way to show you how layers work and how you can use layers to really add a layer of polish to your map. So let's go up in here because we can easily see right now that this building is set on top of this asset. So if we move this out, you'll notice that it goes underneath the building, right? Now I don't actually want to move that at the moment. What I want to do is I want to take that and I want to say bring it up a level and see what it does. Now that's too much. So it goes up on top too much. So currently the way it's situated looks a little funny because we're currently underneath the building. So what we would do is we would bring this out a little bit like so. We'd actually want to bring all of these out a little bit so that they're not actually, see what I mean? You can have some of them be under, but you don't want all of them to be under because we want to have this look essentially like we have this garden here. And this is zoomed in, so you may not see these when you're zoomed out, but I want to show you what we're looking at when we're doing a zoom in detail, so something like this. Now originally I had these tufts of grass here, so we can get rid of these tufts of grass. All right, so now this is what we've got so far, is we've now replaced these 3 items here on the map, and they are on layer 1. It looks like all 3 of these are on layer 1. That's fine. Now what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to find, say, either a grass or a brush vegetation. Let's look at. Let's do some bushes. And I want to find something that is not the same, but somewhat same. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Yeah. Doesn't quite match, but it doesn't have to match perfectly. And what we want to do is maybe we want to bring that up a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this in such a way that it masks the edge of the building here. Now, right now it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, that's because it's on the layer below the building. So we would want to actually bring that up a layer. And boom, now it's placed on top of that. Then we would come back over here and we would continue to do placements like so. And we're using random bush stamps. And essentially, I don't like where I placed that one. And essentially, we're going to flesh that little layer out like that. That one's too much. Now, let's take this small one. Now, I actually want to use a slightly larger one than that. If I place this right here, you're going to notice that it placed on top of the building, which looks kind of funny because it's on top of that asset. So what you actually want to do is drop this one back down a layer so that it hides behind. Now that's hiding it too much because it's getting caught in the shadow of the building there as well, which leads me to believe that I don't actually need to place that. So you see how the shadow is affecting it right there? So it made it not even be visible in that area. So what we would do is we would go ahead and say, well, we're not even going to worry about using that right there. We might instead do some grass if we wanted to. So let's go in here with some grass, and still won't be highly visible because of the building, but it's at least something that's in there. And actually, since we're working with the grass, let's get rid of that real quick. I want the grass to be visible on top. So we actually want to come in here and bring that up a layer, just like that. And let's go ahead and move that just a little bit. Place another tuft of grass. Another one like that. Now they're in the shadows, so we're not going to see them that much, but that's okay. Now we want to come back to the brushes, and we're going to place a couple here and there to sort of add a little bit more cohesion to this so that it's not quite as broken up, if that makes sense. And even though they're a slightly different color, when you scroll out, it's not going to look that different. Now, you can, of course, come in here if you want to and go into one of these individual bushes, go into the advanced settings, and you can tweak all sorts of stuff here with the hues and everything else and make these different colors and the like. Take the saturation up or down, however you choose to fit. Do the brightness up and down. Completely change the contrast, so on and so forth. You can do a lot here to kind of change up those colors a little bit if you wanted to try to get them closer to the stamps themselves. But that's one way that you can use. Now another one are these trees. So I've already got these trees placed, and you'll notice here we got 2 different types of trees. We got a tree that's going over the edge of the building, and then we have a tree in the back that's going behind the building. Now, trees do a pretty good job when you're placing assets of the same type. They tend to do a decent job of blending, kind of automatically knows whether or not it needs to be placed in the foreground or the background. But when you're going up against the edges of buildings, it's not always perfect. And you'll look here down at the roots of this tree. And because this tree is placed on a layer above the garden down there, you'll notice that technically the roots are over the edge of those plants. So to fine tune this, we would want to bring this a little bit over so that it didn't have that placement on top of the garden. So we would do something like this. Now, if I drop it down, it goes behind everything and it's behind the other trees and all the other stuff. But we want it over so that it's covering the edge of the building. And then if we switch down to this one back here, if we brought this one up a layer, well, then that's going to show that. Hang on, I picked the wrong one. I need to get this. That's not the right tree. Well, it's not wanting to let me pick the orange one is the one I wanted to pick. That's the one I wanted to kind of... Let's see, get that tree out of the way. There we go. So if I pick this, that's the actual, if I had it on layer 3. This is on layer 2, so it's behind the building. And then I could do it again and drop it behind that tree in front of it as well if I wanted to add a little bit more. But I kind of like the way it had looked beforehand, so we're going to bring this tree back in here like so. And we could make this one go up a layer if we wanted to. It looks stupid though, wouldn't it? So drop it back down. So using layers is all about blending, and it's especially useful for when you get into doing the hand-grown details. So here's another example. I'm working, putting grass around the edge of this lighthouse, right? And getting the size right and everything else, and placing those how we want to, kind of come out here and kind of flesh this out if I want to. Now, if I wanted to put some tufts right now, we're working on the layer above the lighthouse. So if I place a piece of grass, it's technically putting it in front of the stamp or on top of the stamp. But if I do it something like right here on the corner, I want that to actually be behind. So I would just go back in there to the one I just placed, and I would drop it down a layer to 1. Now I'd go back over and I'd start placing new ones right back around there like that. And same thing here. Because what I want to do is I just want to add a little bit of belief that that grass continues on behind, right? Then I can go back up a layer again, right here. And I can start, placing this out if I wanted to. And just kind of fleshing this out so that I have, a nice grassy area here that comes all the way out to cove like so. And you notice that it's placed it below the bird, and that's because the bird is on a different layer. Now, if I wanted to come in here, that's a bunch of grass, right? Which is all placed in the layer 2. But let's say I want to come in here and add some flowers. Where are the flowers at? I might need to look at all of the assets because I don't remember where the flowers are. So give me a second here. Is it core? No, it's not core. Fantasy regional. No, that's not it. Hills? I got to scroll through here and actually find nature. No. Trees. I know there's flowers in here somewhere. Grass, bushes, desert plants. Here, let's just do this. Really? There's no flowers? Oh, because I'm looking in the wrong. There we go. Let's go with... I think I like these. Yeah, and we want some randomness. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here, and I'm going to drop this down to 10, which is the smallest I can go. And we're going to do some placement here. Now, this is currently placing on the same layer as the grass, right? So it's going to blend in to the stuff I've already placed, like so. and it's going to place it in front of there. You can also maybe put one there. Now, if I wanted to do it on the layer below to have some stuff be back here, like maybe this, we would hide this behind, boom, just like that. So it's actually placed it in such a way that it's somewhat behind the lighthouse, just like that, right? Okay. Then we can scroll out a little bit and you can see we've now added a nice little bit of detail around the lighthouse, both in front of and behind. We're essentially on top of or underneath that layer. Everything about layers is adding detail, the fine details to the map that you're only going to need if you're ever going to use this map for close-ups. And I do use these maps for close-ups, so I actually have to do some fine-tuning in certain areas. Not all areas, but in certain areas I do, because I actually want there to be fine details. So as an example of that would be over here, because the Laughing Badger Tavern is a player-owned location. I actually, in the next video, this is going to be the section that we work on so that I can show you guys how I take a section of a larger 8K map and pull it out for an actual battleground map or a street map, which has way more detail on it than it would be if I was scrolled out all the way. So looking at it from this level, we would look like this. We're going to then come in, we're going to cycle down into a section map. I don't know what it'll look like. Something like this. We'll clone that out in the next video, and then we will then take the cloned version and we will strip some elements out, but add a whole bunch of more elements in using the layers that we learned about today. So if all that sounds like fun to you and you want to know more, all you got to do is like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update as we continue to work on our Inkarnate world building tabletop tutorial series. And if you haven't already watched the previous episodes, make sure to do so. But yeah, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Support if you can. Memberships here on YouTube are the perfect place to start. There's 3 different tiers. You can also do super chats and super stickers on premieres and live streams. Super thanks on older videos that have already been uploaded. You can hit up our Patreon page where you can get a copy of our source book and the prequel module, which includes 20 maps that we've already created for our campaign world. And you also get access to this module and beyond at the Game Master tier. If you're subscribed over there. You can also pick up a standalone copy of our source book and stuff at weaveandvoid.com. So one way or the other, we'll see you in the next episode or over at the Patreon page, hopefully in Discord as well. The links are down there below. Till next time, everybody, stay safe and happy map making.